Megalithic monuments. All my life I have been fascinated by megalithic monuments and earth energies. My father, who was one of the most gentle souls I have ever known, was equally fascinated, and whenever he had some time off, we would go off on an adventure to visit an old castle, a prehistoric monument, or some other site of historical interest. I used to love those trips back in the days when Britain's megalithic sites were not crawling with visitors, although the fact that they are so popular today serves as testament to their powerful appeal, and it is not necessarily a bad thing. I remember visiting Stonehenge and climbing all over the stones, definitely not permitted now, and then standing with my dad, contemplating their meaning as we watched the sun setting over the horizon. When I became more independent and mobile during my teenage years, I would drag my friends all round the country to visit these ancient sites. In fact, I never stopped on my quest to visit as many sites as possible. When I moved to Norway, I was delighted to discover that Scandinavia has megalithic monuments too, and once again I embarked on a quest to locate and visit as many of these sites as possible during the 20 years I spent there. It opened my eyes to the fact that although Europe probably has the greatest concentration of megalithic monuments, said to be over 35,000, they are to be found all over the world. Over the course of my life, I have probably visited all the main sites in Britain and many more besides, in places as far afield as Croatia, Egypt, Malta, Morocco, and Australia. Uluru in Australia has its own special video on my channel. Megalithic monuments are prehistoric monuments which were constructed during the Neolithic and Bronze Ages between 4000 and 2000 BC. Britain has around 900 stone circles, over 1,000 megalithic tombs, 30,000 to 40,000 round barrows, around 3,000 hill forts, and countless thousands of standing stones, not to mention numerous henges, hill figures, causewayed camps, long barrows, passage graves, and quoits, etc. It is mind-boggling to think about the megalithomania which must have existed over a period spanning around 2 millennia during the Neolithic and Bronze Ages. We have been left with this mysterious legacy of hundreds and thousands of precisely engineered structures about which we know very little. Not only do we not really know why they were built, we do not know how they were built either. The logistics and engineering feats involved were extraordinary. For example, the sarsen stones used to build Stonehenge weigh an average of 20 tons each, and the capstone of the Pentre Ifan Dolmen in Wales weighs 17 tons. There has been nothing like this construction zeal since, at least not until the 11th and 12th centuries, when the Normans started building their churches all over the country. It is equally mind-boggling to think that every village in Britain, no matter how small, has a beautiful stone church which was built during this period. It is also interesting to note that most Norman churches are built on former pagan sites. They are invariably built in the old centre of the village, on the highest ground in the area, on what I believe are nodal points on the country's earth energy grid. Here is a brilliant example of a Christian church in Norway, which I visited in 1991, which was built on a former pagan site, as evinced by the dear little stone circle next to it. Theories abound about the purpose of megalithic monuments, ranging from the sublime to the ridiculous. These include the following possible uses: astronomical observatories, temples, healing centres, social gathering places, burial chambers, alignment points on ley lines and UFO landing pads, etc. It has even been suggested that they are post-Atlantean ruins. It is interesting to note that most of the folklore and myths associated with these sites concern beings, often giants, who once walked the earth and who built them for various reasons. Many associated with stories about paranormal activities, and they are thought to be located in areas where the veils between the physical and spiritual planes are much thinner, thus making it easier to communicate with the denizens of the other world. The general consensus is that they have spiritual or religious origins. There is a wealth of fairy lore associated with Britain's megalithic sites. The legends generally concern tales of fairies dancing at stone circles and accounts of ancient sites providing access to fairyland. In other words, portals to other dimensions. See my video entitled The Enchanted Realms for more information about this. I am now starting to believe that stone circles may be energy transformers located on powerful earth currents which become activated at certain times, phases of the moon, and that dancing and the use of sound may well have played a key role in helping to harness this energy for various purposes, such as healing or access to the hidden realms. Sometimes, when I have visited megalithic sites, I have felt absolutely nothing. They are as dead as doornails, and I have wondered why people rave about the energies they feel there. I have come to the conclusion that they are either raving about something that they think they should be experiencing, a sort of pseudo-mystical experience, or because the sites in question were not actually active during my visits. The following photos present a small glimpse into my journey through the megaliths of Britain, while others have been included in my videos relating to my various individual long-distance walks. But first, here is a quick reference to what came before. Creswell Crags. Is Creswell Crags the cradle of civilization in our country? This amazing limestone gorge is located on the border of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire and is home to the only examples of Paleolithic cave art in the UK. It is thought that our nomadic ancestors lived there 50 to 60,000 years ago. I was completely blown away by it when I visited it in 2019. Stonehenge. Stonehenge is said to be Britain's architecturally most sophisticated stone circle. I have visited it on many occasions, but most memorably with my son Alex when he was just 13 months old. Here he is, being initiated into the mysteries of stones at an early age. Despite all the tourists and barriers, Stonehenge is still a very powerful site. See also my video entitled The Great Stones Way for more information about Stonehenge. Avebury. The Avebury complex, built around 2850 to 2200 BC, is spread across a vast landscape and includes the West Kennet Avenue, the West Kennet Long Barrow, the Sanctuary, Windmill Hill and Silbury Hill. The central area incorporates the surviving circular bank and ditch of the Henge, which encircles part of the actual village and what remains of the largest stone circle in Britain, which in turn encloses two smaller stone circles. It has been described as being the most significant sacred site in Britain, if not the whole of Europe. It is located almost midway along the Michael and Mary ley lines, which run across southern Britain from Caen-les-Bourles near Land's End to Hopton-on-Sea between Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft on the east coast. Avebury is one of my favourite megalithic monuments, and I have visited it on more occasions than any other site. Its location and magical power keep drawing me back, and each time I discover something new about the energies there. Before it was discovered by the antiquarian John Aubrey in the mid-17th century, the residents of the area apparently had little concept of the sacred nature of their surroundings. Avebury had fallen into decline over the centuries, and I think that it is only now that it is starting to reawaken. My video on the Great Stones Way contains more information about Avebury. The West Kennet Long Barrow. My husband Steve and I visited this completely magical chambered long barrow near Avebury at full moon in August 2016. I had always known about it. It had been lurking in the wings of my consciousness for years, but in retrospect, I now realize that I needed to be older and more developed spiritually before I could visit it. Visiting the barrow involves a very short walk, just 10 minutes up a small incline, but Steve, who has a professed aversion to walking, thought that he had climbed a mountain by the time we got there. And wow! I was almost knocked off my feet when I entered the barrow. The energy there was so strong. It was like a motorway of powerful energy coursing back and forth in an east-west, west-east direction. I could feel the world slipping away from me, and I became acutely aware of the flow of energy coursing across the whole country and the network of energy lines reaching out from this major artery. Once again, I realized that despite modern encroachments and pollution, the energies in Britain are far from dormant. It is like they are there and have always been there if we can just tune into them. The fact that it was full moon during my visit serves to support my theory that these energies are more active at certain times, especially full moon. When I got home, I looked it up and saw, not surprisingly, that the barrow is located bang on the Mary ley line. Here I am standing at the corner of the West Kennet Long Barrow with Silbury Hill in the background. Silbury Hill is Europe's largest man-made prehistoric mound, built around 2400 BC. Like other megalithic monuments, its purpose and significance are not known, but it is also located right on the Mary ley line. Glastonbury. Like Avebury, Glastonbury draws me, and literally thousands of other weird and wonderful visitors. I have visited it numerous times over the course of my life, and each time I have had amazing mystical experiences there. It is another one of those places where the veils between the worlds are thinner. When I first visited it during my teenage years, it was a relatively small, sleepy Somerset town. My next visit occurred around 20 years later, following my return from Norway. I had told my son Alex that it was a beautiful, magical place and that he would love it. Little did we realize what was awaiting us. Upon our arrival, we were stunned by the rampant commercialism and expansion which had taken place during the intervening years. It was simply too overwhelming, and after a quick shunt around the shops, selling all manner of amazing New Age paraphernalia, we beat a hasty retreat. My first visit was when I attended the second Glastonbury Fair in 1971 with a group of friends. It was nothing like the present-day festival, because you just rolled up, paid £1 for your ticket, pitched your tent wherever you liked, and there was no queuing for the toilets, etc. The weather was beautiful, no rain or mud. We pitched our tent on the edge of a field near a hedge, and I remember sneaking through the hedge into the field next door to explore a bit. It was a beautiful wildflower meadow, and as I sat down, the whole of reality suddenly shifted, and I was transported into a different dimension of existence where the underlying vibration had speeded up. What I call the shimmer. It was a very intense mystical experience, and one I have never forgotten, although I have since experienced it on many different occasions, including during another visit to Glastonbury when I was much older, and when it occurred at the bottom of Glastonbury Tor, not far from the Chalice Well. In those days I knew nothing about ley lines, but in retrospect I realised that these mystical experiences probably occurred on the Michael and Mary ley lines. Callanish. I visited the standing stones at Callanish on one of my magical megalithic mystery tours in 1981. This particular trip incorporated visits to many spectacular megalithic sites in Scotland, particularly in the Western Isles, but the one site which stood out above all the others was Callanish on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides. The sheer logistics of travelling to Lewis in those days was a feat in itself, but the reward was immensely gratifying. The stones rise majestically in a stark, windswept landscape, like sentinels in this far-flung outpost of the British Isles. They have been erected in a cruciform pattern, are 5,000 years old, and predate Stonehenge. Lindisfarne. Alex and I visited Lindisfarne Castle after his graduation from the University of Edinburgh in 2001. For years we had been driving past it on our constant journeying back and forth to Edinburgh, and we kept promising ourselves that we would visit, but the tides never seemed to coincide with our schedule. Finally, in 2001, we realised that the time was right, and our visit was almost like a reward for all Alex's hard work over the years while studying at Edinburgh. Lindisfarne Castle, which sits on top of an ancient volcanic mound, is a powerhouse of magical energy. We almost didn't pay the extortionate entrance fee charged to actually go inside the castle, but we are glad we did, because it quickly became evident that the energy there was very special. We both felt it swirl around us as we stood on the ramparts, looking out across the island. It is obviously not called Holy Island for nothing. The interesting thing is that we didn't get the same feeling at the much heralded ruins of the nearby priory. Pentre Ifan. This photo, taken in 1974, shows me supporting Pentre Ifan, another one of my favourite ancient monuments. This impressive dolmen, which was erected around 3500 BC, is located to the southeast of Newport in Wales, in the foothills of the Preseli Mountains, where the bluestones used to build Stonehenge came from. Pembrokeshire has aptly been described as being the land of enchantment and magic, because the whole area is literally heaving with ancient monuments and magical sites. The Rollright Stones. The Rollright Stones are my go-to megalithic site because they are the closest megalithic monument to my home. Whenever I start to get withdrawal symptoms from my passion to feast on the energies of Britain's prehistoric sites, I leap in my car and make the trip. I can get there and back in a day and spend a happy couple of hours soaking up the vibes in between. The Rollright complex consists of the King's Men stone circle, the Whispering Knights, a former burial chamber consisting of 5 large stones, and the King's Stone, a lone standing stone. There are many legends associated with the complex, including common themes about the impossibility of counting the stones and people being magically petrified. See also Megalithic Monuments Part 2.